You always use that active when defenders, I think, it's like.
People deluded, I'm back again.
Come on, Ian, bro. Come on. Win, lose or draw, we're always here. People deluded, I'm back again. I'm joined by Bav. What are you saying, my guy?
Yes, bro. Still, I say recovering after yesterday. We didn't lose.
You sound
know
deflated, bro.
Yeah, I don't know, man. It's just one of those where like I expected to win, didn't quite get it. So here we are, man.
Exactly. Like you said, here we are. Before we get into the North London derby, obviously, this is my first chance in a minute to speak to you. It has been a week of highs and lows. Personally, I believe the Spurs game was our worst performance in the Premier League so far. I do believe PSV was our best performance in all comps that we've played at this moment. So before we get into the North London derby, what did you make of our return to the Champions League?
Yeah, bro, I was lucky enough to be there, and to be honest, right, it was pretty nice. You know, it was nice in terms of Saka scoring the opening goal, Odegaard scoring as well. It was good to see like a little comeback into the tournament where it's like a little statement, like, okay, we're back and we mean business. So it was a very good performance, and as you said, it's the best of the season so far, especially going forward. I mean, Gabriel Jesus, Trossard, and was Saka as a front three. That was sensational. So yeah, I was very pleased by that, and had me very excited for the Spurs game. And then of course, it didn't quite work out. It wasn't meant to be.
Like you said, it didn't quite work out. Obviously, you touched on the PSV game. How far do you think we can go in the Champions League, or what would be your expectations on that?
I would say that I expect to get to at least the quarterfinals. I want to go at least a step further than what I was level before, which was last 16, constantly getting knocked out. So get past the group stages, get past that first game, and you know, if it's a big team, we beat them like a Bayern or someone, then you know, fantastic. But if we can get to the quarterfinals, and then from that stage, you know, you never quite know. And of course, the final this year is at Wembley, so you know, if we get there, you never know, man.
It's written in the stars. Obviously, yeah, for some people that may not have, I can't imagine no one don't know about you, or if they haven't seen you on my channel before, what's your goals for Arsenal this season? You've touched on, you know, the latter stages of the Champions League. Where are you at? Like, what would be a good season for you? Or what would be the bare minimum you would take from this season?
I think we need a piece of silverware. I'm not saying my priority is the Carabao Cup. That means I'm just saying we need a piece of silverware, and so an FA Cup as a like a little, you know, just in case we can't win a league title, cool, FA Cup, I'll take that, and obviously a higher place in the league. I want to fight for the title. I want to win the title. I want to fight for the title at least. And Champions League wise, yeah, as I said, quarterfinals is my expectations, but we need something. We need some silverware, because I know we won the Community Shield, but that's not really a trophy. It's more of a
English
a
Super
nice
Cup.
nice little start to the season. So if we can win an actual trophy in an FA Cup, Champions League, or a Premier League, then I think that's the expectations.
Honestly, man to a man, deep in your heart, do you believe Arsenal can win this league title against this juggernaut of Manchester City?
Yeah, I do actually. Sounds deluded, doesn't it? Do you know what I mean? No pun intended. But I think the reason why I say I still think we can is because I look at our personnel and go, we've got the players there. And I see what Mikel could do. It's just a matter of, you know, getting the balance sorted. And, you know, I know City have started off pretty well. They've won, was it 6 out of 6? But I saw a stat the last time they done that. They finished third. So the start to the seasons are fantastic, but it is just the start. And the season really gets started in April. So as we were last year, you know, this time last year we were 5 wins out of 6, and it was amazing, you know, 1 point better off than what we are right now actually. And it was like, yeah, we're gonna, you know, go win the title. So I think what really matters to me is once we get past January, how this team is then, because I think that's when I really start to judge them, because I'll have more time to adapt and all these new systems will be in place, and the likes of Havertz and Co will be adapted, and of course maybe some key players return, Partey back, maybe Timber, Martinelli, Trossard. Listen, we've got 6, I think, first teamers out right now. So the fact that we've got 4 wins out of 6, still undefeated, it's not really a bad start. It's been actually a very good start in terms of results, at least. It's just the performances that need to come next. But the fact that we're making chances, you know, creating high XG numbers is a positive, even if we're not playing amazing. So yeah, I still believe it's possible. But yeah, Man City is the one, you know. So look, if they get injury, help us out. Of course, I'm not wishing any injury on anyone, by the way. But like, you know, that's how it is. And you never quite know. But I'm hoping, I'm believing. It is a bit delusional, but you know, that's me as an Arsenal fan, I guess.
I'm with you in a sense of course, I want to win silverware. You know, if we can win the Premier League, the first of this Emirates era, great. I do like what Mikel Arteta is doing. I just feel Arsenal fans in general need to be balanced. As you know, very few of our fan base are balanced. People live in la la land. Some people, you know, misery loves company. And obviously, after the Spurs game, which we're going to get into, a lot of these players that were, you know, heralded as the messiahs and things like that is kind of gone negative. I just feel for as much as I like what Mikel Arteta is doing, as you kind of touched on it, it's Manchester City. It's a juggernaut. It's a beast, and they've taken maximum points. We've dropped 4 points at this moment in time. I personally think we can fight for it, but I just think it will out. And of course, I want to be wrong. I just feel it's a step too far, really, compared to City, because, you know, I still think we need to be a lot more ruthless. I think our game management needs to improve. We've kind of coped with injuries, but we all know the negative effects that that's had in the last 2 years. And a lot of our players aren't necessarily the finished article, so there's not too many guarantees in the squad. That's just not me. That's not me criticizing them. That's just me looking at the weapons City have at their disposal, or what they're doing and what we're not doing or what we are doing, and obviously comparing it because they've gone there and done it. You do need a bit of fortune in the Premier League, as you touched on it. You know, it's 5-6 games in the season. There's 30 odd other games left. There's many twists and turns, bumps and bruises, and hopefully in May, you know, when you're sat on my channel again, we're celebrating. You've got your thumbnails with all the Premier League trophies, etc. But we need to go out there and get it. I am very disappointed in, you know, the fact that we've dropped 4 points, because I'm not expecting us to win everything. It's almost an impossible task playing City, but you need to aspire to do such. And I do think, you know, we make things harder for ourselves. We're going to get onto the Spurs game, but we did that against Fulham. Even games we've kind of won, we need to kind of chase the illusion of perfection. Let's get onto the North London derby, man. Where's your thoughts? Where do we start, my guy? Where do we start?
Yeah. Look, do you know what it is? The first 30 minutes, I was like, this is what I expect. Domination, chance creation, with the team pressing them in, and that's how it should be. We gave Spurs a lot of the ball in the first half, and I think it was kind of planned. I think what we need to do now is find a balance, because what Mikel Arteta has got is he's got players that can go long now. So you've got Raya in goal who can go long, and then you've got Havertz who comes onto the field and he can win headers as well. But we're doing that too often now. We're forcing it. Whereas what Spurs were doing so well in the first half is they were like, no, we're going to keep playing out of the back. It's almost as if we've forgotten our roots of playing out of the back and gone, no. Because we've got a 6'4" midfielder and we've got a goalkeeper who's very good at passing long, let's keep going long constantly. So about finding a balance now of when to go short, when to go long. And that will give us more control. I think that was my biggest concern out of the game, was created enough chances to win the game. Should have been 2-0 up in the first half. But, you know, there was mistakes, obviously, they happened in football, but more the control that we gave Spurs. And they're at their first real stage of their project. They've just started off with Postecoglou. Also should not be given that level of control, not at the Emirates Stadium at least. And I think at times we made it too easy for them. Our press in the first half was decent, but in the second half it wasn't as aggressive. And I think those are the things that last year Arsenal were very good at, is when we would press teams at the Emirates, we'd press them properly, whether you're Spurs or you're Liverpool or Man City. Whereas this season, it feels like it's almost half-hearted at times, or the players get tired. You know, at times I thought in the second half Nketiah looked a bit gassed. I don't know if it was just me, but I thought he was a bit tired. He wasn't really as aggressive in his pressing either. And I think it's about a balance more than anything. Rhythm and balance. Rhythm comes as, of course, the more times we play this season, the more games we play, the more wins we get. But in terms of balance, especially in midfield, it feels like right now it's a bit forced sometimes, and no one quite knows where to be, and it's not quite as, you know, decisive as it was last season.
I think that's a great point, really and truly, especially regarding Eddie Nketiah, because watching the game at home, I actually thought he had an injury, because, like, I would say probably the most times I was peed off with Arsenal away from the evident errors and what we was doing was probably going to be how we closed out the first half. I agree with you. I think we started relatively well in the first half hour. I have to give credit to Postecoglou, because they kind of stifled how we played. They showed a commitment to continue to play out from the back. As you said, I think the pressing was kind of spot on. I don't know what it was. I don't know if tactically Postecoglou kind of found us out or had an effective plan. I don't know if, you know, there's a bit of flatness because we've had 2 games this week. I don't know if just individually and collectively the players collectively for 90 minutes weren't quite at it. I think our game management and how we ended that half, and really the second half, like you said, where we looked out of steam, you know, compounded with Jorginho's mistake. Not going to just draw him out for a mistake because he's not alone. I think it was more of a mixture of things, if I'm honest with you. And I was disappointed, man. I was disappointed because I'm sure you'd agree, and everyone, it's cheap goals. It's more cheap goals at the Emirates. You know, the second one I was more annoyed because we've just got back into the game. It's that age-old saying, as you know, you're most vulnerable when you've just scored, and we kind of lived that. that and we gave it out of nothing. You know, we can sit here and say, you know, Spurs scored out of nothing, but that's what magical players do. Not that I want to praise Spurs players, but you've got Son Heung-min, you've got Maddison. They're going to make things happen. The first goal disappointed me because I know Saka is never going to be a great defender. That's not his job. But I thought him, Benjamin White, actually, Declan Rice, and several players could have done better because they've only picked up some when it's too late. We know our right-hand side is probably the keyest side for us to exploit them. We know they're left because statistically, you can see the positions that Maddison takes up. I was a bit disappointed in Odegaard, if I'm honest, because I wanted a bit more because he set high expectations. I still am a bit concerned, as we were speaking about in the summer. Me personally, I'm not really convinced generally with our midfield options. We know Partey's out. Declan Rice unfortunately picked up an injury. And I don't think Fabio Vieira's done very well. I think that game was the one this season where he hasn't quite been at it. So I'll give him a bye. I think when Havertz came on at the time, I wanted to see that because I thought we just needed a bit more, someone that's just going to muck in. But I don't think any of them have convinced in that role. The Jorginho one, I kind of got it. You know, he's an experienced head, etc., etc. I just thought, and I'm not Mikel Arteta, it's easy for me to say things in hindsight, but I just thought, you know what, I don't think El Nene gets caught in a situation like Jorginho purely because I don't think he's going to gamble like that because he's not that kind of player. And just on the transitions, Spurs are more than a transitional team, but they can exploit you if you make a mistake. And I just think it's kind of suicidal setting Jorginho up for that, especially in the second half where collectively his teammates are starting to run out of steam, etc., etc. As much as I criticize everyone, including Benjamin White, I give him his flowers because obviously he won the penalty. His overlap allowed Saka to have that deflected effort. So it kind of is what it is. And like you said, you know, one benefit is we didn't lose. As they say, if you can't win, don't lose. But it does feel like 2 points dropped. Would you say it's a point gained or 2 points dropped? Because I can't speak for you, but second half, I was a bit nervous. I was just thinking, you know what? It's just going to take 1 minute of brilliance and they're nicking it. Or is it 2 points dropped or is it a point game for you?
Yeah, it's 2 points dropped because I always expect to beat Spurs at home. That's one game I almost not guaranteed to win, but Spurs at home, they've got an awful record there. And we're a team that is, you know, in the ascendancy. We're trying to win a title. I think Spurs at home is a game that you expect to win. So it's like Fulham almost, you know, a sense of, show some good signs here and there, but we dropped 2 points. And when you're fighting Man City for a title and you're 4 points behind them now, you know, it's not ideal. So for me, it is 2 points drop. But that being said, I'm not going to sit here and go over the top and say, like, title's over, everything's over in September, because I realise that things can change in 2 games. Look, we saw this time last season, Man City weren't convincing. They were dropping points to Brentford. They were dropping points at home and away, and they weren't as convincing. Everton at home was another game they dropped points in. But, you know, as they get into the real tough part of the season is when they came into their own. And for Arsenal now, it's about just staying within range until we get into that rhythm, players come back into full fitness, and then finding that form and that consistency. And I think that's when it really matters. And even yesterday, I think one thing I liked is the fact that even though at the end, the game was a bit chaotic, a lot of our players still stayed calm. They weren't panicking. They weren't, you know, I know Jorginho made a mistake, but that was obviously, I'm talking about after that. You know, I think the players still stayed calm, and there wasn't really many chances the Spurs had after the one that we gave it to them. So apart from that, I think, look, it is what it is. We're not perfect right now. We're far from our best, but we're still 4 wins out of 6. So it's like we're still getting the job done kind of thing. And I think our next league game is it Brentford away, or is that
no, I think Brentford on Wednesday, and I think we got Bournemouth, and then I actually think it's City after that. I could be wrong.
Yeah. Bournemouth, and I think we got Brentford soon after that as well. So that's the way. Well, I think that's when it really matters. What City at home is a game that I think that we need to win. When you got Rodri out, no Kevin De Bruyne, this is the best you're going to get of Man City to beat them. You know, I'm not saying they're weak, by the way, because they've still got top players, but at home, you know, chance to if we can make it, that would be 7 points out of a possible, 10? No, a possible something 9, like sorry. Possible 9 against City, Spurs, Man United. I think that would be a good record against the Big Six. You know, we played 2 of the Big Six games now, and we're 1 point off worse than last season. And that was an amazing start, by the way. That was when, you know, Arsenal were the best. So here's what it is, man. It isn't amazing, but we're getting the job done. And I think that's what matters at this stage of the season. When it gets to the real tough parts, we'll see what this team's really made of.
And you made a great point there about statistically our points. That's why I was saying what I said earlier, and that we need balance. I understand, you know, Arsenal fans, we've been robbed of genuine belief for years. And the last 2 years, in fact, 2 years, this year, last year, and I'd probably say the season we finished 5th, where it was really starting to come into its own. I think we've been robbed of belief. So I understand why Arsenal fans are in the clouds. I understand why when we win, we're happy as Larry. When we lose, to a degree, it's the worst thing ever. As you said, points-wise, you know, it could be better, it could be worse. I don't think anybody expected maximum points. So we just need to move forward with that. Like you said, with City, we're not City, but they started off slow and they came into their own. I'm only disappointed in the fact that we've dropped 4 points beyond the obvious, in that, if we're going to get to latter stage of the Champions League, if we're going to be in runnings, like you said, especially when you take the lead, as you know, there's no easy games in the Premier League. When you take the lead, you need it to come into its own, really and truly. And I just feel the game management, to being open on the transitions, they've been there when we've actually won games. And I think these are the things that are going to harm us. A bit like last season when we spoke, as great as City are, and as much as I believe they're a juggernaut, we had it in our hands and ultimately we threw it away. These are the things that I believe we kind of have to arrest. So I think that's a great point in what you said about balance. What have you made of David Raya? Because, he's got his start and he's another one I think people, were proclaiming. I'm not putting him against Ramsdale. I'm happy with both of them. May the best man win. But, it was all over for Ramsdale. I wouldn't say he was terrible against Spurs, but I don't think his kicking was really spot on. I don't think he's to blame for any of the goals. In fact, the first one maybe could have done better in the build-up, because I think they put in a cross from the right-hand side. He's kind of flapped at it. Then it's gone on the left. I definitely don't blame him for Jorginho's goal, but from the moment of Jorginho making that mistake, I think Saliba's kind of been deserted in the sense of, he's by himself. Saliba had a great game in the second half. I think Gabriel needs to bust the gut to kind of close down the option of Son. And I'm no goalkeeping coach. I'm just an honest fan. I think Raya's goalkeeping positioning weren't really good enough. What have you made of David Raya in an Arsenal shirt?
I've been impressed in the grand schemes, even though Spurs wasn't his best of games. And I think what really mattered to me was against Spurs. When he really got pressed, I didn't see the composure that I wanted, or thought I'd get. Having seen him play against Everton and PSV, I thought I'd get real composure.
What do you mean by that for someone who doesn't?
I think in terms of, he didn't make any massive mistakes and stuff, but I wanted to see him just calm it down a little bit more. And I think sometimes he was forcing it long, but maybe that's not Raya himself. And it's an instruction from Arteta of, look, when they press you, you got Havertz up front, aim for him and, get us up the pitch. We're going long quite a lot of the season. It's been one of our main features, and it's worked sometimes. We're trying to do what Man City could have done to Arsenal sometimes, where Ederson goes long to Haaland. But the issue for Arsenal is not having the balance of sometimes playing out of the back and actually inviting the pressure and playing out of it. That's what Spurs did to Arsenal every time. We pressed into them, they played out of the pressure, and they were in behind constantly. So for Arsenal's sake, we've got the players for it. When you've got Zinchenko and you've got Rice or Jorginho in the second half, you've got enough quality to play out that press. You got to believe a bit more about yourselves, and that's where I think we've not been able to exert the right level of control in our two Big Six games. Spurs and United are good teams. We respect them in transition, but they're not teams that should be dominating Arsenal on the ball. And we've given them the ball, which I don't like. So, yeah, in terms of David Raya's performance, I think I wasn't sitting there going, okay, it was awful. I've seen some fans go, get Ramsdale back in guard. I think it's worth that.
You know how fans are, man.
Yeah. Do you know how it is? It's like if one player has a bad game. It was a really bad game, to be honest. I think they should have saved.
So much.
They're saying he should have saved the Son shot. If he had come out, Ramsdale would have saved. But look, we don't know. So let's not make up hypotheticals. I think he's been pretty
They
flawless.
Say your keeper's your last line of defence. So
exactly.
Not to exclude him, but other people could have done more, man.
Of course.
Right.
And I think the save in the first half was amazing as well. But I think it's a matter of Mikel Arteta giving him the right instructions of going, look, this is when you go long, this is when you go short. Because if you keep going long, because it's two goalkeepers now. It was the same with Ramsdale and now with Raya. So it has to be an instruction at this point. Because both of these keepers have the ability to play out the back. And if you see Spurs' goalkeeper doing that, why can't our goalkeepers do that? Two keepers that are known for playing out the back. So, I think it's now about Mikel actually maximising his profile, but not overdoing it. Knowing that he can go long, cool, we get that. But, let him play short sometimes as well.
I think you're bang on the money there with balance. I think we're getting into that scenario now where Mikel Arteta has to kind of find different gears. And as you've seen last season, we could probably, a blind man could pick our starting 11. You can't really do that now. Obviously, injuries make it a bit more predictable, but Arteta's gone from having almost no options to a point to the world of options. 2 in all positions is what he's aspiring. There's a couple other multifunctional players. I just feel we need to, like you said, I think we need to find balance, when to go long, when to go smart. I think our game management needs to improve. And I think we're at that stage where our players just have to be a bit more street smart. My coach in Sunday League level, when I was a little kid, said the best footballers ask the best questions. If you see the ball on the left-hand side and Son's making a run through the middle, should you ask yourself, maybe someone should follow him, if not me? I think we're in that scenario. I think we're in that scenario where players have to, as much as you have to do what Arteta is doing, a lot of you have played in the Premier League, you're experienced at Arsenal, some of you have got a world of experience elsewhere. I think they need to sort things out. I know Sky Sports make a running joke of, when you pan the cameras on Manchester City, all the players are in mad deliberation. I think that's where we've got to now aspire to. And that's why I was disappointed in Jorginho's mistake. Now, I've seen Havertz lose the ball against United. I've seen Saka do it against Fulham. I've seen Jorginho obviously do it, and there'll be other players. So it's not really just getting at a player thing. But with Jorginho, for his level of experience, for the period of the game where, we've literally just scored. I don't even think you was at the stadium. You probably didn't even sit down. You was probably still mid-air with your hands before you sat down for that goal. And that's where I want to see Jorginho on that. Literally, when we're celebrating, go, you know what, boys, calm it down now. 10 minutes, don't do too much. Let's manage the game. And I think that's where we kind of lack in that, over 90 minutes, generally we're good, but there's better and worse periods. Like you said at the beginning, and I agree, I think first half an hour was kind of even. There was some sort of positives. For me, it looked like we ran out of gas a bit in that game, more so in the first half. And then I think the most terrible period was how we closed out the first half. Second half, I think we started relatively brightly, but as the game went on and players are getting tired, and obviously there's not that safety net of Declan Rice, the game became a bit open. But in general, I think both teams can be, there's a couple more positives for Spurs, to be fair with you, but there are some positives, but there also that feeling of, could we have got a bit more? For Spurs, based on how we played at Arsenal, they played against us, they're probably thinking we could have grabbed 2 more points. We took the lead twice, a bit like against Fulham. We got it back in the game. Ultimately, we've shared the spoils. There's no easy games in the Premier League. No one's going to give you 3 points. And it's another one at the Emirates. I don't know what it is, but at the Emirates, it's like there's no point defending to a degree because we just let goals in. We need to improve at that. I'm a big fan of Mikel Arteta, and as you are as well. And we can't begin to comprehend football to the way he does it. Again, football managers are a bit crippled in the sense of, you can never do anything right. What did you make of his substitutions? Because for me personally, I think Eddie and Nketiah should have come off and Jesus going through the middle. Obviously, we've just kind of touched on Jorginho. And yeah, to be fair to him, there's not too much you can really do in terms of key players. As you said, Trossard, Martinelli, etc. There's a long list of players out. What did you make of Arteta tactically in that game?
Yeah, I think the confusion was definitely even Nketiah on. He wasn't having a good game. He looked gassed out, and Jesus was having, I think, a better game at least. And I think every time Jesus has played for Arsenal as a 9, he causes issues. With Eddie, I think you need to supply him, and we weren't giving him no supply. So in which case it becomes a bit, pointless at times. So to take off Jesus was a surprise, but again, we don't know if he's maybe still carrying something, or if he's still recovering from his injury, or whatever. Is he fully fit? I'm not sure. But taking him off was my real surprise. I think, maybe seeing Smith Rowe a bit earlier, having brought him on so late, but of course you're going to take off. Havertz came on at half time. I think he was pretty decent, to be honest. And Jorginho, as you said, maybe El Neni, but again, I don't think fans would have accepted that. If we brought El Neni,
he wouldn't have won, because I'm saying that with El Neni, but people would have said something. I just said El Neni purely because he knows his role. He's not going to dilly-dally on the ball like Jorginho. He's not as gifted technically as him.
Yeah, I think, look, it was a massive blow. To take off Declan Rice at half-time, a forced change, is not what you want. Rice was, even though he wasn't amazing in the first half, he would have given us more defensive control in the second half. And that mistake that, Jorginho makes, Rice just don't make. So that's a matter of, look, it is what it is. Mistakes happen. I'm not going to sit here and rant about Jorginho. He's a very good player, but he's not a starter for Arsenal, and that's the reason behind that. So, yeah, I think subs-wise from Arteta, I just want to see him maybe pick and choose better. So pick what players to take off. Sometimes you'll leave players on that having really bad games, and then fans will quite understand. So with Eddie, we could see he's had a really bad game. And now what's happened to Eddie is everyone's onto his case now, because he wasn't taken off at the right time, and everyone's like, oh, why is he on? And it's Eddie's fault, blah, blah, blah. But ultimately, the team wasn't as good, and we didn't deserve to win that game either. We had some chances in the first half, we didn't take them. And I think, as you said earlier, what is it with the Emirates Stadium? I think we just lose concentration. That's a reality. Whereas away from home, we're always switched on, no matter when we score a goal, whatever. I think it's just the players take it for granted. Away games, I think they realise that, okay, look, it's away, things can change like that. Let's, keep switched on. At home games, they relax. They're like, okay, we're the Emirates Stadium, sun is shining, fans are cheering, everything's in my favour. Right? I think that's what it is. They start waving to the boxes and the families, hello, how you doing, kind of thing. Away from home, it's not like that. You can see it, it's switched on. And I think that's what we need to start bringing over to the Emirates is, okay, every game now it's like that. Teams can just switch, and in the Premier League as well, especially nowadays where you got all the added time and stuff. No game's ever over. So until you're maybe 4-5-0 up and you methodically kill that team off, fair enough. But until that point, when it's only one goal, switched on, go and make it 2-3, and then from that moment again, you can start waving to the boxes and stuff. But before that, man, I don't like it. I think yesterday we were very good in the first 35 minutes, take the lead as we deserve to take the lead, and then after that we just kind of just sat back and said, okay, you can have the ball now, and that's not how it should be. Man City don't do that. That's why Man City are champions. They will go for you again and again and again, and they'll kill you off, and then they can start to relax.
I'm with you with that. I always give the analogy of a boxing match. It's like Arsenal. We go into a boxing match, we throw a couple punches. It looks like the opponent's a bit, the legs are kind of gone. But City, if there was a boxer, they're just going to keep punching and punching and punching. And then it's down to the ref to stop it, really and truly. And that's the ruthlessness I think Arteta has to install. But I also think the players have got to start smelling blood. I've always said I think the Emirates, I won't quite say it's not a fortress. I do think it's a tough ground to come to. As you've seen, we've given great games. But I want us to be more boring for Arsenal fans and ultimately more boring for the neutrals. I think we're too exciting for the neutrals to watch. You saw the Bournemouth game last year, Man United this year and last, Spurs this year as well. There's too many of them, Fulham negatively. There's too many of them kind of games. And I do think it's a bit of what you're saying. I do it definitely in that we're probably a bit too happy. The Emirates is lovely. Some of these players, not too many, were well, in fact, probably only El Nene now, but some of these players in the last 2 years have seen the Emirates more in a negative light. Sun shining, grass is lit. We're moving forward as a football club. So I do think there's natural complacencies. And I also think, not that we set up differently away from home, but I think at home, naturally, you're going to not have less respect for your opponent, but you're going to try and impose what you want to do a bit more. So I think these kind of things that we're talking about is almost like a negative cocktail that ultimately, when it goes wrong, it goes very wrong. Ultimately, football's decided in both boxes. As you know, you need to defend well, which we can't say we did yesterday. We conceded 2 goals out of nothing. Credit to Spurs, slap on the wrist for us. And we didn't take our chances. I'm saying that even though we got 2 goals, what do you make of our strikers? Because I think Eddie had a decent chance to do a lot better. First time with that Eddie chance where I think he went near post. When I was watching it live, I said there was nothing else. When I've watched the game again, there was a couple of options. Gabriel Jesus is a lovely player. I think that Maddison chance kind of sums up Gabriel Jesus, the good, bad, and the ugly, in that he's chaotic. He'll press the life out of his opponent. He's nicked the ball. And I don't even want to remind you about it. He didn't go in the back of the net. Like, what do you make of our striking options? Do you think we need another striker? Because I can only speak for myself. We've spoken about this before. Do you think we lack a clinical striker? Because potentially that was a draw. If you had a clinical striker, that could probably turn that draw into a victory. That's obviously 2 more points on the board. Now, it's easy for me to do that, but yeah, man, it is a bit unique in that they've got Haaland and a bunch of other players. We've got Eddie and Jesus. As much as I like them and like what they're doing, especially Jesus, they ain't really got that pedigree. I know the goals are being distributed, but you get the point.
Yeah, I think, look, we could get a more clinical striker, but I think ultimately speaking, we need to create more chances. That's the thing. Because Haaland misses a lot of chances. I think it was a game in the Champions League. He missed 5 big chances.
Sure,
no one
against
talks
West
about
Ham
it.
age your
Because
point,
what happens is they'll keep making more chances. What it is with us is, we could definitely use a more clinical striker, but big strikers miss a lot of chances. That just happens with everyone. There's no real one chance, one goal. Haaland misses a lot of chances, but he'll get so many that his numbers will be massive at the end of it. So for Jesus, he can be more clinical, and that sums up kind of. But if he gets more chances, he'll score 1 for sure. And likewise Nketiah. Nketiah only had 1 big chance all game. And at home, with our level of creativity, when you got Saka and Odegaard, Vieira or Havertz, you should be able to create more chances. So I think it's more a matter of creation more than goal scoring, because once you start creating more chances, we'll score more goals. Because we've got players that are clinical mostly. Like, talk about Jesus and Nketiah, but Saka's normally pretty clinical. Saka, I think, often doesn't miss many big chances, and he needs a Martinelli when he's fit, or Trossard when he's fit. So we could use maybe a more natural number 9 that you can go long to. So if you're going to do that style of football like a Tony, of course you could add that profile. He'll score more goals, of course he will. But I think if we can create more chances in the first place, that's the real problem I see, is we're not creating enough. I think I saw something like we're from open play 11th in the league for expected open play XG. That's not good enough. And I know we've already maximised our corners, and that's very good for us. Corners are fantastic, but if you can now start to take more risks on the field, put the ball in the box, how often do you see Arsenal wait, and then throw the ball into the box when the box is full and no one's going to win a ball? When I watch other teams play nowadays, if it's a Liverpool or City, whoever, they don't wait, they don't hesitate, they just throw the ball into the box straight away because they realise they've got the quality in there to make it. We've got a lot of territory in the final third, we get very good field to numbers and all that type of stuff is amazing, but I don't think we're maximising that, because how can we have the ball in the final third so often and still be 11th or was it 15th actually for big chances created?
I'm with you with that, man. I feel, like you said, a new strike, another striker that lives and breathes goals. Who wouldn't want that? Like, who wouldn't want players that would better your system? But I do think, I don't have the metrics or anything for last season, but I do think it's like we was creating more clear-cut chances. Sometimes it is a bit too scripted, almost a bit too perfect in the final third. And I personally don't want us to lose that, because the flip side of that is forcing things. But there are times you want us to maybe be a bit more direct, maybe gamble a bit more, maybe just force the boat out, because as you've seen with a lot of teams, even in games that we win, they're just going to sit in, keep their position. They know Arsenal would pass it around and around and just look to pick your moment and nick the ball, really and truly. So I think you're right in that. Why do you think we're creating less chances? Is it due to injuries? Is it due to us trying to learn a new system? Do you think Mikel Arteta potentially is a bit too scripted and it doesn't have that kind of healthy randomness? What would it be for you?
It's been a problem under Arteta. since he's come to Arsenal. We've never been big in terms of big chances created. Even last year, I think we weren't very high. XG's always high because we're shooting a lot. But in terms of quality chances that you're making, compared to Liverpool, Man City, we're not on that same level. And I think it is down to the script, maybe. That's what it is Mikel wants to have everything coordinated. That player there, that player there. Also, a lot of our big chances come from, like, deflections or shots, where it's kind of put a shot in a certain area and know that it will be a chance created. So it won't count as a big chance created, but it kind of is, in a sense, right? But in comparison to City and Liverpool, I just think our attack isn't as, decisive with their actions. It's a lot of waiting for the right moment, hoping for the right moment.
Whereas
you watch Liverpool or City play. When City play with De Bruyne, he'll throw the ball into the box. He'll just throw it into the box. And he'll realise that if I throw it in a certain area constantly, at one point of the game, someone will make the right run. And I think that's another part of our game is we don't have runners in behind. Far from Fabio Vieira against Everton, maybe. A lot of our games are players kind of static. They wait for the ball to come to them and they try to turn after that. We don't have, like, Odegaard's not really a running behind, is he? And he tried to do it at certain parts toward the end of this game, but he's not as, I guess, good at that as maybe a KDB is. So, I think we don't really have one designated player to make our big chances. Saka makes a lot of chances, but big create chances. We're talking Bruno Fernandes for Man United, De Bruyne for Man City. Arsenal don't really have that player, and I think the player that has the potential to do so isn't really Odegaard. It's probably more Fabio Vieira. I think he's got the final pass to do so. But again, you have to find the right angles for him and get him in the right positions to do so. So, yeah, I think it's more a matter of just throwing the ball into the box. It sounds simple, but we don't do it enough.
Nah, man, it's not simple. Football's a simple game, complicated by idiots, is what they say. That's a great point on on running in behind, because I feel there are players that from time to time will run in behind. But I'd say out of all of them, like as you were saying with what you're saying, I was thinking, who's the one player? Probably would have been Martinelli. He's the one that's probably the transitional demon in our team, the guy that will provoke havoc. And, it's easy. It's always the players that weren't involved that would have made us better, but we miss Martinelli. Where are you at with the injuries? Because we've been dealing with it from the start of the season. Now, off the top of my head, you've got Partey. We don't know with Rice, but Partey, Rice, Trossard, Martinelli, Timber, that Saka is carrying a knock, and I've probably missed out somebody, if any, really. So where are you at with the injuries? Does it concern you? Do you feel a bit bewildered? Like, why do you think that's the thing? Is it because there's more games now? Is it? I don't know, man.
It could be just on the luck. Happens. Timber's unfortunate injury. That's a long-term injury. Yeah, but there you go. So I think it's a matter of a mix of luck. Maybe it's how we're training. Maybe it's how we're playing. Maybe it's the midweek games. I'm not quite sure, because we have a lot of muscular injuries. I believe Martinelli, Trossard, and Partey, all three, even Rice now, is all muscular. So that's not a good sign. And maybe it is down to someone how they're doing in training, or the physios need to sort something out. But apart from that, I think luck's a massive part of injuries. And, we see it with Timber is, if he was fit and available right now, he'd be a massive player for us. But of course he's not. And that was more of a unfortunate little injury that happened. And of course fans could say, why did he come back onto the field? But look, that happens, right? Maybe he was kind of fine and something else happened after that. So I think he's down to luck, to be honest. I think we've been a bit unlucky. And I think in terms of how we can improve, I don't know, maybe chat to the physios, because I'm not really a physio, to be honest. I don't really know how to, this is what you got to do tactically, and that, maybe it's less running, but again, fans don't want to see that. They want to see us run even more. So
you're right on that, man. And honestly, only God knows, unless you're Mikel Arteta, and what you're seeing, what I would say is that, intense training is going to be intense. Games are going to be intense, because that's what the system demands of us, essentially, man. We're just going to have to get on with it. I've got sympathy for the fans to a degree. I have sympathy for Arteta with the injuries. But then again, no, I don't, because, we've seen, how injuries can disrupt our season, and they're not just necessarily exclusive to us. Where are you at with Kai Havertz? Because we mentioned him a couple of times. He's unfortunately 007 now, like still mixed bag in relation to Havertz. Where are you at with it, man? Honestly,
he's getting better. I think in the last 2 games he's definitely going better, especially in the PSV game. I don't think he was poor at all. That doesn't mean he's been amazing, by the way, but he's getting better. And I think I can see more and more of him growing as a player, but there needs to be a moment. I don't know when it is coming, but it needs to be a moment. Okay, this is when he's arrived. This is his moment, Spurs would have been a perfect game. I'm not sure when we play Chelsea away. I don't think it's too far. I don't think it's too far.
Soon, if I can remember correctly.
Yeah.
We've got that.
I don't think it's too far.
Sure.
I also think he's got a decent record against City. Scored against them in the Champions League final. So look, I think he needs a big moment. That's what he needs. And I think you can see it growing game by game. But he was brought into Arsenal not to hold the ball up and not to win the ball back, even though he's got very decent dual winning numbers. It's to score goals. And the fact that he's not getting into the positions anymore isn't really the best of signs. But we saw it in pre-season, and once he gets in those areas, he can score goals. It's just a matter of getting him in the right areas. Now, I see, our next game, obviously after Brentford, does he start now? Having seen Vieira's performance in the first half against Spurs, who starts that game against? Is it Bournemouth at home or is it Bournemouth away?
Bournemouth
Who
away.
starts that? Yeah, Bournemouth away. So who starts that game? Is it Havertz? Is it Vieira? If Havertz starts, can he score a goal in that game? Because after that, I think our league game after that is City at home. So
need
it's
them
coming
3
up.
points.
It's coming thick and fast. Exactly. So I think with Havertz, it's a matter of I can see improvements. He's not been amazing, but he's growing as a player, and that's what I want to see sometimes. And I think it's just a matter of he needs one goal, and that can change everything.
And I'm with you in that I don't think Havertz has been amazing. I don't think he's been terrible. I just feel it's a mixed bag in that I think Arteta, with reason, definitely probably not against Spurs, but within reason, I think his teammates and obviously Arteta, they'll have an appreciation for the dirty work, the duels won, all of that sort of stuff. The stuff that only really comes out after the game, the sort of, analytical sort of stuff. I think he needs to take that and do like what you said, start running in behind, start scoring goals. Because the reality is, Havertz isn't a player you could look at and say, obviously shout out Mikel Arteta, but if you showed people what Timber was like, you could say there's a use for that in the squad. If you showed people, obviously Declan Rice, there's a use for that. Havertz is kind of okay. For me anyways, it's like, I'm not really with it, but because you're with it, Mikel Arteta, I'll run with it in it and see where it goes. And I think you made a great point, because it's easy for me to say, and as much as I like Xhaka, I don't think Xhaka is that good of a player we should be talking about him being missed. But I think because of what we're doing now, it highlights Granit. I still think that left-sided 8 is still up for debate. I'd probably lean towards Fabio Vieira again, because that was probably the one game where you was a bystander, honestly, against Spurs. But other than that, you've done okay, really. With Kai Havertz, I do like what he brings physically. If you could bring in some technical quality, that'd be great. I think there's too much confusion as to who that left-sided 8 is really and truly. Had Partey have been fit, maybe for all you know, Mikel Arteta could have went Rice, Partey and Odegaard, and maybe things could have happened, but that's all here, there and everywhere really. We can only talk about the absolutes. Obviously, to wrap this up then, man, we've got, like you said, we've got Bournemouth, we've got Brentford. How are you feeling this week? Firstly, with Brentford, man, because you'd imagine there's going to be some rotation. It is in the League Cup. I know you said that you want to win a cup, but this ain't the greatest of achievements, really. But it would be a nice victory. Like, where are you at with that? Do you expect rotation? What are you expecting from that?
I think we need rotation. We can't really go back to back and one more game after that. Strong teams. We need to see certain players start. Smith Rowe, I think, needs to get a start at this point. I feel sorry for the kid. I think he needs his first. That would be his first Arsenal start. God knows how long. Don't know when's the last time he started an Arsenal game.
Trust me.
For Smith Rowe to start would be massive. Apart from that, the likes of Reece Nelson up front will be a massive. Will he go for Havertz up front? Maybe to test him out of that. May he go Nketiah instead? We don't really have any young forwards to play. So yeah, I think there'll be a lot of rotation. But again, we've got a pretty, I won't say a small squad, but there's not a lot of players to pick from in the sense of the first teamers are all involved, and with that, all the first teamers are injured right now, like Partey, and so the other ones are playing as well. So it's a matter of the likes of Jorginho getting starts, maybe El Neni as well. So we'll see. But I'm really excited to see Smith Rowe. I think that's the one. I think he needs a goal. Because you can see Smith Rowe is growing again. You can see that he's getting back into full fitness and he looks sharp. But if he scores a goal, then you'll start entering the conversations of Vieira and Havertz. Because he should be there, by the way. He should be in the same conversation of, is it Havertz, is it Vieira, is it Smith Rowe? And I think if he realises that area is there for grabs, if he can take it, then, we won't look back at it and go, okay, look, this was his time to shine.
You took the words out of my mouth, where I was just about to say, Smith Rowe could potentially get into that 8 role. I think what's going against Smith Rowe, you've got to be patient. But I do think in life, sometimes, not that Smith Rowe took starting and playing for Arsenal for granted, but when you was playing week in, week out, number 10, you're living a movie. Now it's kind of been robbed from you. So now when you get that opportunity, take it and grab it with both hands. And it's just about, like you said, putting a marker down, because it is open season on the left-sided 8. Admittedly, I am very concerned with the fact that we're saying that, because I think at least where my midfield is, I always say we're going to live or die by midfield. I think there needs to be some confirmations, but I'd love to see Smith Rowe start. You could argue, and again, it's easy in hindsight, but maybe Eddie Nketiah could have dropped to the bench against Spurs. Jesus up front, Nelson off the left-hand side, which ultimately came on and played. I'd love to see Nelson start. I'd probably give it to Eddie Nketiah in terms of starting, because I want Jesus to kind of be wrapped up in cotton wool now, because we've got some difficult games. Right wing is debatable, because if you go Nelson on the left, Eddie up front, I don't know. Maybe Smith Rowe has to go on the left so we can do other things in midfield and whatnot. In fact, my last question for you, away from the Bournemouth game, because we will expect 3 points and want 3 points. Do you feel the squad depth's improved? Because obviously on one hand, yeah, it did, but a couple injuries now. It's not that we're back to square one, but it's like, have we moved forward? Have we moved backwards? Or have we stayed in the same place?
No, I think we've definitely improved. And I say that with confidence as well, because the fact that we've got no Partey and haven't had it for 3-4 games, and we've still won most of those games in that time, is a massive indication. Even against Spurs, we had enough chances to win that game. So, you know, last season, if these players are out, no Trossard, Martinelli, no Partey, no Timber, we would have been really, really struggling. But this year, we're still winning games. And even though we're not perfect, we're getting the job done. And that's, you know, without first-team players available. So it gives me confidence of when those players come back to full fitness, how good could his team then be? You know, with Partey and Rice again in midfield, with the likes of Jesus up front and Zinchenko in midfield. So our squad definitely has improved. Because this time last year, if these players were injured, we'd have Sambi Lukonga starting for Arsenal. Now we've got the likes of Rice and if not Jorginho. So that we've leveled up for sure.
I mean, that scared me still. Sambi Lukonga, big him up for Luton. But you're right, though, man. We've got more stronger depth, probably more so in defence than in midfield. But I do expect between this time next year, I do think there'll be at least 1 or 2 new central midfielders in. There is more depth. We're just going to have to get on with it and see what happens, man. What would you say? Prediction for Brentford game, prediction for Bournemouth then?
Prediction for Brentford, I think a win is must. I think don't want to lose our first game of the season to Brentford of all teams, especially in the Carabao Cup. I know it's away from home, so it won't be easy. I'm actually going to the game, so we'll see how the atmosphere is like.
Safe travels, bro.
Yeah, thank you, bro. It's actually local to me, so you know what I mean. It won't be too far from me. But I think Brentford will go for we'll go 2-1. It'll be scrappy. Brentford are a scrappy side, and I don't know how strong he'll go for that game, as in the Brentford team. And then for Bournemouth being away, I'm not sure how Bournemouth have done so far this season in terms of their form and where they are, but it's a win you expect per minimum, especially after the draw to Spurs. So I'm going Arsenal 2, Bournemouth 0. We keep a lot of clean sheets away from home, so hopefully do it again.
I'm with you, man. I think Brentford's going to be a nail-biting one, a nervy one. You know, I'm pretty sure their results have been a bit mixed of recent, and sometimes a cup run or a cup game can be one to get the fans up. We know better than most fans, you know, Brentford away. We were given a tough introduction when they returned to the Premier League. I do think there'll be some rotation, and I think currently we're a team that when we do rotate, we're moving away from it, but we've become a team when you do rotate, you see the misses that some players do, whether it's off the ball or on the ball. You know, I'm quite nervous for the Brentford game, more than Bournemouth, if I'm honest, purely because it's a cup game. There's no margin for error. I do think Mikel Arteta, do you know what? To be fair with you, Mikel Arteta might just go strong again, because I know it's in the League Cup, but it's no different from the week that's just gone. You're playing 2 games a week. Could he just try and get these boys prepared and go strong again? With the injuries, it's going to have to be easy. I'm going to say 2-1 as well. I'm going to go with 2-1 Brentford. I'm a bit shook. You know, I don't know. I'm just going to go 2-1. I'm going to go Smith Rowe, Nelson, the goal scorers. Bournemouth, I'm going to do you one better and go 3-0, because I want to say 2-0, but we can't have the same prediction. I'm going to go 3, an added goal, because I just think we need to be a bit more ruthless. We need to put a smile back on Arsenal fans' faces. So we're just going to have to go see, man. But as usual, Babs, it's appreciative to have you on my channel. I can't imagine anyone isn't subscribed or knows about your content. But if they don't, at the time of making this vid, what content have you got to come out on your channel, if any?
Yeah, I think I'm going to have to break down the Spurs game properly in detail. And, of course, talk about all the rumours that's still going on.
Already. That's scary, man.
Yeah, Ivan Toney. You see how happens, what's happening with that as well. We'll talk about all the stuff happening at Arsenal and break it down as per, and try to keep it logical and sensible. But of course, as Arsenal fans, it's hard sometimes.
It's very hard. Have you got a time around that or a day around that coming out, or is it when
it's
you
coming
get,
out tonight? Tonight, as long as things go to plan tonight.
So there you have it, people. As I said, I can't imagine you're not subscribed and got your notifications on. But if not, and you want more of Babs, you know where to find him. As usual, broski, fantastic having you on the channel and chopping up and picking your brains for everything with Arsenal. The results unfortunate, but winning, losing, drawing comes with football, man. So with that being said, people, hit the like button, subscribe to the channels, comment your own thoughts and everything discussed. And we're out, man. Everyone else, have a great day, evening, night, wherever you lot are. Safe.
There's always that active red line defending. I think it's like